Hello again, welcome back. Today is all about tearing down both of the 2GRs, mainly focusing on the 2GR-FE, getting the heads off that and getting them ready to be ported, but we'll also be tearing down the 2GR-FSE in order to install some new ACL race bearings into the rods and the main crankshaft bearings. I'll also take you through some key differences between the two motors that I might not have gotten into last time, like the front timing case, a bit of the coolant galleries, and we'll also be putting the heads side by side to show you that they are interchangeable, because they also share the exact same head gasket part number, so that's always a good start. But you'll notice that the engine is currently sitting in the engine bay, but there are no engine mounts made as of yet. There's a few clearance issues against the firewall and general leveling and stuff like that we have to deal with first, but I figure we may as well build the final complete engine ready to drop in, have that all sorted, and then we can figure out getting it, fabricating stuff to get it put into situ. So lots planned ahead, and I'll take you along for the ride, see what we can get done, and see if I can talk you through some stuff as we go. Hello, I'm in a different shirt and I'm wearing a hat, but if you notice that, you're paying attention to the wrong thing. As you'll notice, the correct thing to pay attention to is the fact that this is all gold, which is a great sign. It's not obviously clean because it was a used engine, but having it be all gold with like no sludge whatsoever is a great sign of a well-maintained, good serviced donor engine. So this is kind of my sign to keep going, and that I've made a good purchase. So it makes me happy to see. So there's a good wear pattern along the cams, but yeah, everything's really gold and barely any carbon in it, no sludge or anything like that. Everything was obviously a bit dry after having it sit for so long, but once it's out, it's good that there's still oil in it, so it hasn't been sitting there dry. So yeah, this is a great sign that I've lucked out with this engine. Either way, the heads are getting rebuilt, so they will be cleaned and ported regardless, but it's good that I don't need to really pay attention to too much else. And the other thing is obviously the underside of the rocker cover is just as good condition. Same deal, no sludge or anything like that. So yeah, we're onto a good one here, and I will continue on the other side. It's got collected by coolant. Toyota. The fuck am I meant to get? The fucking post. Just got the back of my hand.
For real.
So we're at another talking point now that I'd like to specifically mention. Like how I mentioned in the introduction, there's a few closer details that I can't get into with just a general talking about the engine. This one is one such detail with the front timing cover.
What the dog doing?
So this is the front wheel drive top engine mount. There's another top section to this, which you'll have seen in the video. But this caps around the coolant inlet pipe. So it sits, as you can see behind me, it sits in like that and sits in the timing, on the timing cover. Very, very important point. There are 5 bolts that have sealant on them that's actually form part of the timing case seal in there. So going from the FSE, which has absolutely nothing there, being a rear-wheel drive engine, all the sealant, these are important because they have sealant on the end. If you don't seal these, oil will come hosing out. The issue is going from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive means that we will no longer be using this engine mount. So from that, we have to match these bolts and kind of put them in as dummy bolts purely for sealing, but they can no longer be this long. That we'll have to work out basically what that length of thread is, and figure that length out for a bolt size, put sealant on the end of it, and then incorporate that into sealing our timing case on the rear-wheel drive motor. That's all I can see. So that's the main difference in the middle little kind of triangle here of the timing case in between the two motors. This center section is all I can really notice, including these two around here. So very important key detail in between the rear-wheel drive FSE block and the front-wheel drive FE block are these sealing bolts included in the front-wheel drive engine mount. So if you're following in my footsteps, very important to get these matched thread pitch, but in a shorter form in order to seal the timing case when you eventually swap them over to the rear-wheel drive FSE block.
sick.
Alright, we're at another point. This point we are stopping on the 2GR-FE. We've gotten what we needed from it, which are the two heads. So they will be off to the machine shop to get cleaned, but they will no longer be ported, just because it doesn't benefit too much from getting ported. I've come to find out. There's a mob over in the US called ATS Racing. They do a lot of NA builds for the MR2s and a few turbo stuff, and they sell a lot of stuff. But they know their stuff about 2GRs, so in their latest build, as of recording, they've pulled like 360 horsepower out of an NA build for a 2GR, and they, in their post, they said that they didn't pull too much extra from the heads being ported, whether that was because the heads weren't ported very well or whatever. But regardless, it's a big expense that I can do without, and it's better spent elsewhere. But yeah, to recap, we've got what we need from the FE, and now it's time for that one. So now the video keeps going. It's the grueling task of tearing down the FSE. Luckily this one's not as dressed. I will do this all off camera just to save the effort and the time. If you want to know how to tear it down, just watch the video from the beginning. And if you want to know how to put it back together, watch my other video that I've made. So there's no point recording any further, but I will, after this gets torn down, I will go into specific details about the differences in heads and the timing case and stuff like that, and kind of little things that I've had to do to make it sit where it sits at the moment. I hoped you enjoyed watching Jaden disassemble the FSE. She did a really good job, had it down to a fine art by the end of it because she didn't have to organise anything. I was in the background organising everything, so that makes the job a hell of a whole lot easier. Yay. So the built engine is still in really good nick. A little bit of foreign debris kind of entering into it, but ultimately pretty good. I think that was mainly because I had built it in a carport, and it was sitting in a carport for a fairly long time. But that's not the reason why we pulled it apart. We pulled it apart so I could get some closer detail kind of on the record to do a side-by-side in between the FSE and the FE head. And also the front timing covers are different as well, which I'll go into as well. So yeah, over on the table over here, I have got two heads. So they're both Bank 1 heads, and one's from the FE and one's from the FSE. So this is the FSE head, and this is the FE head. Both from Bank 1. You can see here this has an extension on the end of it for the cam driven high pressure fuel pump, and you'll see that on the suitable matching rocker cover, that it has the same extension. I did speak about it in my last video, but it's good to see it on video. Obviously, aside from this one being dirty and this one being extremely clean, they're all really similar. Aside from that extension housing, all the locations of the hydraulic lash adjusters are all the same, but that's really not what makes it interchangeable, because I will be running FE cams and ultimately the FE head in its entirety. So the lash adjusters and the roller rockers are to suit the FE head. What matters for interchangeability is the pattern for the head stud bolts. So what I will do now is I'll take this one over to my built motor with the head studs on it and show you that it does completely fall on. As you can see, the head studs are on there, which really help, because if I had head bolts this would be a bit harder to demonstrate, but yeah, as you can see there, head studs all fit in, which is really good, and the coolant galleries on the side and all of that. So to confirm, this is the FSE block and the FE head, but on bank 1 the FSE head had the extension here driving the high pressure fuel pump. It now no longer has that extension, but the mating surface is the same, and there are absolutely no changes on this top half. So the head stud or the head bolt pattern is exactly the same, meaning that you can exchange these two heads and run them on across the different families of 2GRs. Now if we go back to the table, so now another detailed shot we've got of the underside. So the blue tinted one is the FSE, so the blue's from the hyalomer of the head gasket, and the dirty one is from the FE. You'll notice the main difference being the direct injector holes in the heads, which are not present in the FE at all, which is the reason why basically I had to buy the whole other engine, and why it's not as simple as just like swapping an intake manifold or anything like that. These are actually built into the heads of the motor, so in order to plug them, you can see why it's a bit of a dangerous operation. Yeah, but other than that, there's some differences in coolant galleries, which we've got on the front here of the head there, and then but ultimately they're quite similar. You can see our oil gallery are the same shape through both heads, and yeah, like I said, they share the same part number. You've got the same coolant channels around here, and I'm just kind of like spitballing off the top of my head everything that I can see right in front of me right now. Feel free to tell me any differences you might know in the comments, but ultimately, like I said, the main difference is the lack of direct injection, and the main kind of pro is that they have the exact same head stud pattern and the exact same head gasket part number, so they are interchangeable. As you saw, it did fit on the FSE block. Next, we've got the two timing covers, so we'll go over that next. I've had to come down a bit lower so you can see me, so I can point out a few key differences between the two timing cases. Obviously the FE is on this side and the FSE is on this side. There are a few important differences to making this head swap work. Main thing being, on the FE here, you can see there are like those sealing bolts that I spoke about earlier, completely not present on the FSE timing cover. Coolant galleries are all the same, but there are two bolts here and only one bolt here for water pump. Another thing is the power steering extension here, which, I mean, realistically you could just kind of like cut that off. But other than that, the coolant galleries are the same. The water pump kind of extension inlet into the block is all the same. Timing chain tensioner cover is the same. Oil pump's the same. You can actually interchange the strainer in between the two oil pumps depending on what sump you'll run, which is the third thing that we'll get into in this video, is the difference between the front sump and the rear and the Lexus rear sump out of the FSE. But ultimately, key difference is this triangle, as I mentioned earlier, as well as the two bolts that are present here, being sealing bolts. But everything, as you kind of imagine it on the block, everything above here is kind of head side, everything below here is block side. So if we're going to be running kind of the FSE block and the FE heads, you'd be better off switching to the FE timing cover anyway, because the block side is very similar, I suppose, from these kind of changes in mounting bolts there, but that's just water pump related. Yeah, so it's good to see these two side by side. I know a photo of them side by side can be pretty hard to come by. I've found that in my research, which is kind of why I'm making this video in the first place and why I'm kind of documenting everything regarding the swap. But next, I'll quickly take you through the front and rear sump differences, and also what I've had to modify on the front sump to get it to clear the 86 subframe. This time is a lot less intimate because really there's a bit of an obvious difference and a bit less closer detail in between the front sump and the rear sump. So the rear sump is from the Lexus or the FSE, and the front sump is what I got from the FE. And yeah, I mean, you can see the difference. I don't really need to explain too much, other than the mega chin here on the Lexus sump, and then the oil filter in the correct spot on the front sump. Another key difference I found was these actually form part of the bell housing for the transmission. So in order for, in my case, in order for the RA62, the manual IS250 box, to fit all the bell housing bolts, I would need to use this rear sump from the Lexus motor, because then the bell housing bolt pattern would be the same. I'll actually flip it and I'll show you. So yeah, as you can see, the bell housing pattern kind of varies because of the way this is meant to be in a front wheel drive and this is meant to be in a rear wheel drive. It's not the end of the world. If you're kind of a car enthusiast, you'll know that turbo 400s and all of that, they only use the top half of the kind of the engine block, and they have a big cavity underneath in their transmissions when they bolt to the engine. So it's not the end of the world. I can make this work. But the other thing is, you'll see that I've kind of milled away at these braces here on the FE sump. This is in order to clear the 86 subframe, because, I mean, you don't need to do it, but in order to get it sitting how I was happy with, I didn't really feel bad about cutting away at these ribs because they don't really function in terms of sealing or anything like that. But yeah, ultimately all the same bolt pattern, which I took a gamble on and kind of won. I'll make a very important point here. If you go to a front sump, this hole here is very annoying. So in the front wheel drive application, this hole lines up with nothing. So it doesn't thread, it doesn't provide any mounting solution, it doesn't seal or anything like that. It just is there. But when you use this front sump on a rear-wheel drive block, like the FSE block, this hole lines up exactly with the main oil gallery in the FSE block, which is real proper annoying. So you can either, obviously, if you're good at fabrication and welding alloy, you can just plug that and weld it shut. What I'm planning to do, because my welding skills aren't that good, is tap some threads into it, put some hectic Loctite onto it, and then put a bolt into it and just like crank it shut. And then I've seen it done in different applications across different models and all of that, but and they work pretty well. So in order to seal this, I think that's what I'm going to have to do. Worst case, obviously I just get it plugged and welded shut, but if you're not really that fabrication skilled, inclined, whatever word you want to use, like I am, then tapping threads and loading it with thread locker is a solution that I've seen done in different kind of projects across different models. Other than that, if you do go front sump, you'll obviously have to convert to the FE oil pickup, but that bolts up directly to the FSE block with absolutely no issues whatsoever, that because the oil pump is the same. Alright, well, that's the full video. I'm glad you were here because it was a lot of work. Glad to also provide as much information as I could. A bit of a trial by fire. Obviously we didn't know, there's only so much research you can do until you have everything physically side by side. But thank you very much for being here. Apologies for the delay. It has been a hectic while, and I feel like I'm going to say that every single time. But it may be a hectic while until the next one. I do have a big Toyota sponsored Japan trip coming up because I won their Toyota National Skills. In Australia. So best apprentice technician in Australia, which is awesome. And I get a free business class trip to Japan, and all the Toyota people are going to tour me around the museums and stuff like that. So it's been proper hectic. Not to mention we crammed an Adelaide trip in there right before Christmas.
Day 2.
Good morning. Good morning, sorry. Merry Christmas.
To buy the BMW you've been seeing in the background of the video, and you're wondering where'd the Sylvia go, if you even caught on to that. It's been replaced with the 5 Series E34 Touring. It's a 525i. Eventually we'll be bagging it and maybe even V12 swapping it if we can wrap our heads around it and find a good donor car in a paddock somewhere. But that's a story for another time, because I have this to finish, and we are absolutely not having 2 projects at once. I'm not going to make that mistake. So yeah, it might be a little while until the next one, but I'm glad you're all enjoying it. You did really well on the last video. If you want to leave a comment or a like, or just subscribe if you're enjoying, I really hope you enjoyed the video. It's been a long process, fitting life in between all of this, and I really hope that you got some great information from it, whether you follow in my footsteps or using it in another project, whatever you like. I hope I can be of some help, and can't wait to update you with the next one when it gets there. Thanks for watching.